Hello, friends. Hope everybody's doing well. Glad to have you back with me today. So, today I wanted to talk about what to paint. This is something that I struggled a lot with when I was first learning how to do this. Is what do I even paint? Where do I look to find things to paint? And the thing is, there's things to paint all around us all the time. And I'm going to use this photo that I took last week as an example of that. This is the view looking out the window at my office where I work. It's the view overlooking this mountain that we have on the other side of the road if you look out the kitchen. I see it every day. I've been looking at this view for, I don't know, the past 5 or so years, maybe more. And it never occurred to me to paint it. But something about the way the light was hitting this hillside and the way the rocks were really standing out against the lighter brown earth, and the way that this structure sits on top of this hill, and the kind of very straight lines of these power poles and this radio tower contrasting with the more organic shapes surrounding it, it just really caught my eye. And I do like the overall shape of this composition, how it's kind of a sloping motion going down this way. So you've got this overall shape coming down this way, broken by this radio tower. But then you've also got this line coming down here, which intersects this line, which then goes down there. So it's kind of a zigzag. Just a very satisfying shape to me. So instead of thinking about, oh, I'm going to paint a radio tower, I'm thinking about there's some very interesting shapes and very interesting light and shadows happening. And that's what I'm looking for when I'm out and about. I'm always unconsciously looking for interesting shapes, interesting areas of light and shadow, interesting areas of contrast. And things just start jumping out at you if you practice doing that for long enough. So you don't have to go to some exotic location to find amazing things to paint, although you can do that, but if you don't have the means to, you can find things to paint at your office where you work. You just never know where your next great scene will come from. So, here's the photo I'm going to be working from. And I've broken this down in my value study into 3 values. So the white of the paper represents all of the lightest values that will happen in the painting. The sky, most of the lit areas of this hillside, the lit area of this structure, and then the second value would be midtones, which are represented by this tone of Payne's gray. And for the midtones, I'm trying to find a way to connect every area of middle value that I see in the composition into one big shape that all connects and flows together. So this background hill is mostly going to be middle value. I'm not going to put much detail into the background hill. In fact, I want this to recede very far into the distance and be fuzzy and indistinct, which will help push this hill farther forward. So that middle value comes down into these shrubs right here, these Palo Verde trees, the dark rocks, then on up into these utility poles, the shadow side of this compound, and then most of the radio tower itself will be middle value also. And then the third value is darks, which is just a darker mixture of Payne's gray, a thicker mixture. And there's really not that much. There's just a few areas in the rocks, maybe some of the shadows of the trees. And then I'm probably going to end up putting darks here and there on this radio tower for those very fine details. There's a lot of cables and things running up the tower, and then we've obviously got the power lines that are kind of drooping in between these utility poles. Some of the power lines right here, like if you look right here, these ones are catching the sun and they're white. and I really want to capture that. So there's a few different ways I can do that. I can either scratch this out with my fingernail once the paint is dry enough, or I can go back with gouache and paint them that way. I would prefer to scratch them out with my fingernail. So what I'm going to have to do is paint the sky, let it dry just enough to where I can actually come back in and scratch out these white lines so that the white of the paper shows up underneath. If I let it dry too much, you can't scratch. If you try to scratch too soon, then it just won't work. The paint will kind of move out of the way of your fingernail, and then it will flow back in and cover up that mark. So you have to have the right timing with scratching and with everything in watercolor, honestly. Okay, so we've got our value study, we've got our reference photo, got my palette ready. So let me go turn on the palette cam and we will get into this. Okay, here we go. So painting on block today. This is a Kilimanjaro 140-pound block, 9x12. Very affordable, very nice watercolor block. You can get it from Cheap Joe's. Highly, highly recommend. Okay, so got a new color on my palette. Got some lavender. I'm gonna try that out. Mix that into the sky. See what that looks like. So let me wet down this block just with a sponge. I'm not gonna soak it. I'm just getting everything damp as evenly as I can, which will give me more time to work wet into wet in this first stage where I'm painting the lightest values. Alright, so let's start mixing up some sky colors here. Do cobalt blue. If you find that your paint is kind of sticking when you mix on your palette, just add a little bit more water. Then it will flow better. Cobalt blue. Some cobalt blue light. Add that in there. These two colors together, cobalt blue and cobalt blue light, make a very nice sky, in my opinion. I'll throw some lavender in there, see what that does. This is supposed to kind of take the edge off the blue, make it a little less vibrant. So let's see. Yeah, that is nice. And we'll go more heavy on the lavender as the sky moves down towards the horizon. More heavy on the lavender and the cobalt light. So it's just a nice, simple sky today. Simple looking, I should say, but I'm always trying to get that nice smooth gradient from top to bottom. I'll darken up the top a little more, I think. A little more cobalt blue. Okay, right about there, I need to start mixing in some lighter colors, so let me rinse this brush off. Squeeze out that excess paint. I kind of have to do that with this brush because it just holds so much water and so much paint, which is great. That's what I want. Okay, just threw a bit more of that light, that cobalt light into there. So if I paint into the sky that's already there just a little bit, that should start making this gradient. Painting right through the radio tower, right through the utility poles, because those are going to be middle value, and it's all going to get painted over anyway. So I don't need to worry about painting around all that stuff. Okay, and now right there, we'll rinse off the brush again, squeeze out that excess water and the excess paint, and we'll go even lighter. That turquoise, or not turquoise, what color is this? I can't think straight. Lavender, more of that lavender. It really does kind of make the sky a nice subdued blue. It's very pretty. Paint back into that area we've already painted a little bit, and then just bring it down. I'm going to paint around this shelter because I want that to be a very warm color. That just pops out. Okay, so this guy's done. Pretty simple. Didn't get it quite as smooth as I want, but that's alright. Always learning and trying to improve. So I just want to mix up a few warm colors here and there for the mountain and for this building. Just gonna drop that in there. Let it fuzz and bloom. We'll just start painting this hillside. It's kind of a yellow ochre, reddish, warm something. Just dropping in a bunch of big patches of color. Not worried about detail in this stage of the painting. Big colors, big shapes. Mix up a quick green. I'll just grab some cadmium yellow, dropped it right into this sky color. It gives me a nice, pleasant green. I'll throw some red in there to kind of dull it down a little bit. If you need your greens to be more earthy colored, just mix a little red into the mixture and it'll make it more earthy and green, more earthy and dusty green. Okay, so I'm going to drop in this background hill while the paper's still damp. I want the top to be kind of fuzzy. spraying the top a little bit so it gets very fuzzy. I'm just kind of dipping my finger into the water and flicking it around, just introducing some randomness. Okay, so that's the first wash. We have all of our lightest values on the paper. So I need to let this dry, and then we will start with the second wash. Alright, we're going to start painting this big middle value shape now. Let's see. Start with the shadow side of that compound. Some warm shadow. Bringing it right down to the top of this hill, which is being lit by the sun. And there's kind of a little cast shadow right there from the building. We'll make that a cooler color. Touch right into the part we just painted. And drop in this tower too. This brush has a fine enough point that I should be able to do it with this. Doesn't have to be perfectly straight. I'll grab this smaller brush for some of the smaller details on that tower. There's actually a bunch of hawks that live up at the top of this tower. You can see them flying around. lot of interesting lines and details happening in this shape. There's some cast shadows on this side, the lit side. Doorway there. I'm not going to go too crazy with the detail on this part. Alright, we can drop that utility pole in, which is actually connected to this part of the shape too. This other one too, while we're at it. This pole's got a little cast shadow. I like that detail. That'll lead right into this tree right here. Also got this little fence or something back here. Okay. This cactus right here. I like how that kind of sticks up from this rocky area and reaches up in front of this compound. See how it's all one big connected shape. All of this middle value stuff, it all connects together. Alright, let me get some of this foliage in here. Mix that cadmium yellow right into this kind of gray-green mixture that I had on the palette. So that tree connects right into the shape of the shadow right here. So there's a tree right here. I want it to be part of this bigger shape. So I'll drop in some more of that grayish middle value. Just bring this shape down a little farther. Right about there. Just adding some texture here and there too. A lot of texture is going on this mountainside. We'll come do more of that later. So these trees right here are all individual trees, but I'm painting them as one big connected shape. Painting in the rocks on this left side here. Alternating between warm and cool gray. Always looking for new ways that I can connect this big shape together. Just dropping a few darks into these trees while they're still wet, give them a little more shape, a little more volume. Cast shadow from this tree on the ground here. I'm gonna add a few darks to this mountain here, so I'm gonna pre-wet this area, which has already completely dried. I'm just gonna drop in a few mid-value tones, fairly blue. No, it's too dark. And I pre-wet the area so that when I drop in this new paint, it will fuzz and be more indistinct. Bring that right down to the tops of these trees. Yeah, I like how that looks. I think that looks pretty good. It also helps pop out this hillside more, darkening the background a little bit. Just gonna add a little bit of a random texture here and there. So I've splayed out my brush like this, so it's got some teeth on it. Just kind of tapping it here and there, get some of that gritty, rocky texture. Do some dry brushing. Just making it a little more gritty looking. Okay, at this point, all we need to do is add in those darks and we'll be done. And then maybe a few highlights with gouache. I'm gonna have to do those power lines with gouache because I forgot to scratch them out with my nail. That's fine. Most of these darks are going to be in the rocks. Just mixing up a nice grayish color. Start working on these really fun small details on this tower here. It's okay to let the line break every now and then. Alright, we're just going to drop in some highlights of this white gouache. Just going to drop a highlight onto this side of the tower. So I just tapped a little bit with the gouache to add some sparkle to the ground. But other than that, I think we're going to call this a finished painting. I hope you enjoyed watching, I hope you learned something, and I hope I'll see you on the next one.